Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever you're lucky enough to be doing it too. I'm Bushka Blitz, and I'm here to talk to you today about the E50, the pie-eating, red-defeating monster of justice and wonder. This used to be really my favourite Tier 9 medium by a bloody long shot when I first kicked off and started grinding up the lines. And I haven't really played it for an awfully long time, and it's another one of these reviews where I've got to go back to it and have a chat about the tank and see exactly where it's gone in the meantime. It really hasn't gone anywhere. It's still pretty much exactly the same tank it's always been. And it's got more or less the same drawbacks and the same positives that it's always had. The E50 gets a very, very bad rap, in fact. I've had a lot of people tell me it's a crap tank, and I don't agree with them even in the slightest. There's its big brother, the E50M, certainly a tank to be reckoned with, a tank that I really enjoy driving at Tier 10. I drove it in ratings, it did really well. I drove it pretty much every time I drive it, it does well. It's a great tank. And one of the things that's been really in the favour of the E50 and the E50M is the big changes that came to premium ammunition. The E50 has a very, very good armour profile for a Tier 9 medium. Now, people tell me it doesn't, and they tell me it's not good armour-wise, and I think they're wrong. And I'm going to endeavour to show why, from my end, by giving you some practical tests. I'm going to show you the armour in a tick, and we're going to have a look at it from the perspective of an M60 who's got 250mm of pen. Now, what the tank has going for it is that armour and a very, very nice gun. The gun on the E50 is well worth talking about. It is the 10.5cm KWK L52, and that reason that is worth talking about is because it has some gorgeous accuracy involved. As far as your tier is, Tier 9 tanks, you're far and away one of the most accurate tanks running around the battlefield. You've got 0.272 dispersion once you get your double rations and everything blowing out, and that, boys and girls, is the best dispersion number you can get at Tier 9. Of course, there is a cost involved. You have terrible pen, and your DPM is very low, but you see those two bounces we had there. Two big bounces, in fact. One of them was from this little boy, the M60. Now, that is the angle I was at when the M60 was firing at me. And it's an angle that you've got to learn to recreate with the E50 if you want to be any good in it whatsoever. Why is that angle so important? Because if you're creating an angle like that with your tank and they're trying to pen you with standard AP rounds around about 250mm, they're going to struggle. Your lower glacis is weak. Your turret, although quite small and hard to hit, is weak, but your upper glacis at 250mm is very, very rough. And it's why, despite the low damage per minute output of a tank like the E50, even compared to its peers, it can still do very, very well when brawling. And in a pinch, it can side scrape. Now, it doesn't have the gun depression over the front of the tank that you would love to have in a Tier 9 medium tank. In fact, its gun depression over the front is only 5 degrees. But if you turn the tank to its side, you can get the gun depression down to a absolutely fantastic 8 degrees. And that's why you'll see me quite often in this tank go and shoot over the side of the drive wheel, as you saw me shooting over the side of the drive wheel up there on that raised elevated area of canal. And if you are side scraping and you don't blow your angles, you can see right there is still a whole lot of red, and it's very, very tough to pen. Now, bigger TDs and things are going to hit you, but you're a medium tank. That's expected. Even when they switch to heat, there's no guarantees that they're going to go through that frontal area because it's still a very, very tough pen. The upper plate is where all the joy and the love is on this tank, and you're able to side scrape it very, very effectively compared to most Tier 9s. In fact, most Tier 9 mediums, if not most Tier 9 tanks. It's also quite capable of brawling. And as I mentioned before, although it is a very, very big tank, very large, it's still a medium tank in more than just a name. It's got enough traverse and enough top-end speed to get out and about, and it's got enough DPM to get out and about and manage and get by. And even though that M48 has managed to get into me, we're still going to get the last laugh and get the kill on him. Now, we lose the game, but that's, that's one of the things that I do want to talk about. I had so many games in this tank which I lost because it's very hard to get the line and pick it on this tank because it's a sniper tank. It's got excellent dispersion, but low damage per minute numbers. It's got big alpha, but low sustained damage. So what you want to be doing with it is upping that number as much as possible. And the only way you up that number as much as possible is to fire without being seen. And if you're capable of doing that, or at least fire from cover so that you can't be hit, if you're capable of doing that, you can really pump out damage in this thing. And I had no problems doing 4K plus. What I had a problem with doing was doing 4K plus and picking the right time to push and the right time to hang back. And I had 3 games with me doing 4.5, 4.7 where I lost. And this is just one of them. This is one of the games that I'm going to show because it's a nice blend, this game, of toughing it out and then conserving hit points, making mistakes and getting back into the game and doing my level best to try and bring things off to a good conclusion. Now, the DPM is low. Your DPM is the lowest outside of a couple of notable exceptions. Well, it's not the lowest. It's about mid-range, right? But it's lower than your T54. It's lower than the M46 Patton, obviously, which is a monster. It's lower than the Leopard PTA. It's right around the same as the Type 61 and the T54E1. Where it differs with something like the Centurion 7 Mark 1 is the Cent 7 Mark 1 has HESH, which allows it to peek-a-boom and do tremendous 440 alpha shots on tanks, so it can artificially raise that damage per minute number. The other thing it struggles with tremendously is penetration. So that means you've only got 220mm of pen. So you're faced with a very, very tough choice in this tank. You're faced with the decision to either go with premium ammunition to pen and go up to 270, which again is not great pramo pen, or run calibrated shells and get it up to about 231mm of pen on your AP rounds and 283mm of pen on your APCR, but drop your DPM even further. And that's, for the most part, what I decided to do. I ran calibrated shells just because its DPM is so low and its time on target is so necessary. You can't really afford to miss too many shots. Now, you can run it either way. You can run your gun rammer and you'll manage, but bear in mind, that was the decision I made. Shell velocity is good. Your dispersion is incredible, obviously. 0.272 dispersion is absolutely outstanding. And your aim time is very good as well. And you can get your aim time down very low if you want to, or you can run it much like the 62A build I ran, which is a supercharge and then the refined gun at top end, and bring your dispersion right down to 0.258, which is pretty sweet, and allows you to pen better at distance, where this tank does do a lot of the business. And you're going to see here, I just get overwhelmed in the end. It's a bit tough, but they're the breaks. I mean, you get those in the big jobs, and we weren't just sniping. We did try and take the church tower, and we lost one flank and then tried to support the other. And there's some things I'd like to do again, like that shot was inexplicable. That shot was absolutely inexplicable. The side of a lurver, and we didn't get in. But you can see just how good this tank is. It's able to pen, and I'm angling that upper plate out all the time. Like, you can see upper plate angling. It becomes second nature after a while, and it's something you should be doing in all your tanks, like your Tiger 2s, your lurvers, your VK2801s, all these German tanks, your E75s, your VK4502Bs. Anything that's got this big fat upper plate, that's a bad one, is something that you should be angling like this. Now, the gun depression is tough here because I'd like to side scrape and get these shots back, but because of the bloody lack of gun depression over the front and my inability to turn the tank too far out to the left to get the shots off, every time I go back far enough to pull a shot in, well, then we drop back and the gun depression disappears and I can't get a shot off, and it's just tough. That's one of those things, and that's one of the great things about the game is there's nuance in the game, and there are certain things in the game which are good and certain things which are bad. That's a bad thing when I shoot really badly and aim in the wrong area. But for the most part, the gun is excellent. The armor, if you learn how to use it, is excellent. And the mobility is surprisingly good. It gets out there at a fat rate. Speed, 60 kilometers an hour. Really, really fast. Your powder weight's rubbish, okay? But your terrain resistance is actually really good, which doesn't make a lot of sense. The T54's terrain resistance numbers are for hard ground 1, for medium ground 1.1, and for soft 1.6. The E50 is a massive tank. It really is. It weighs 62 tons versus the T54's 34.6. But its terrain resistance numbers, and the lower number is better, are 0.8, 1, and 1.4. So its terrain resistance numbers across the board are better than the T54s. They're better than the Type 61s. They're better than the Centurion 7 Mark 1s. They're better than the M46 Patterns and the T54 E1. They're exactly the same as a Leopard PTA. Which leads me to this really odd thing where I find it actually is far more mobile than people give it credit for. And it gets this other cool thing in brawls and such where it gets to run into people constantly like this T54 and just do an extra 150 damage and, you know, and just ruin them. And it really is a big part of brawling in this tank is pushing into tanks and nudging them and bumping them and using that to actually do more damage. And always trying to keep that angle. Now, you're going to see another thing I do an awful lot in the E50. Indeed, in most tanks where I'm in a brawling situation is I try and side hug and then move backwards and forwards and skip the gun. Look at the upper plate, and I just don't even bother. Go straight to APCR, and I just want to try and get some shots in because so far this guy's probably got the wood on me. We're about even at the moment. Just want to get some shots in, build up a little bit of a lead, and then be happy, happy, happy. And here we go. Moving around and then going to pull back. Angle up that upper plate. Catch the shot. And he then ends up getting stuffed by the waffle tractor. And here comes Boom Sig. This is pre-nerf Boom Sig, so I'm still quite worried. Always trying to side scrape, angle that plate, duck in, duck out. Another thing a lot of people don't realise about the E50 and your 105mm gun, your HE shells do 450 alpha damage. You might think that's nothing special. You'd be very, very wrong. The T54 has 420 on its HE. The Leopard PTA has 400. The Type 61 has 400. The Centurion 7 Mark 1 has 440 on its HESH. The M46 Patton has 400. You do 450. It's just another little thing where the E50 actually has a bit of an advantage, and it's one of the reasons why you should always be swapping up to your HE shells on this tank to actually hit soft targets like a Borsig or a Waffle Tractor or a Grill 15 or an RU251 or a T49, anything that, or the sides of French tanks or the backs of American tanks. Anytime you get a chance to lay out that extra little bit of advantage, like a T54 doesn't have any HE at all. Anytime you get the chance to add that little bit more extra love into your shell, you absolutely should be. The size of that T61, if I was lucky, I could have penned with HE. Like, these are good things. And they're things that you should be taking advantage of. Because even though it's not renowned for its HE penetration, it's only got 63mm of pen on that. There are an awful lot of tanks at this tier that you can pen with HE. And just by the way, that 63mm of pen on HE is more than everyone else in your tier as a medium gets, apart from the Cent, obviously, which has HESH. 53 is the next closest from the PTA and the Type 61. So big HE damage, bigger HE pen. Just something to know and something to remember and something to live by. And you can see me just using the gun to get the work done here. It powers, it really does. When you let the gun sing, it works so nicely. And if you're a fan of sniper tanks, this is going to be a great tank for you to pick up and run with. You're really going to enjoy it. It's something you should be doing all the time, is using this little setup. I love this tank. I loved it when I got it. I still really enjoy it. It's a tank that I think has a great big place in the game. It's a RAM monster. It's a very much underrated brawler despite its low DPM. It's a super accurate tank. It's a tank that can play at tier 9 or tier 10 pretty much equally successfully, and you're going to see you don't have good camo. That is one of the big negatives, so as soon as I get that shot off, I start pulling back. You certainly can't use that. And you can go hull down in this, but only if you're moving and angling the turret all the time, because it's not easy to pen if it's moving, but it's very, very easy to pen if you're absolutely stagnant and showing the flat parts of the face. I'm a big fan of both the E50 and the E50M. I wasn't sure if I'd still be a fan after all this time and not really having taken the time out to drive it, but I do think it's a good tank still. Some people don't like it. That's fair enough. It's certainly got some particular weaknesses, and if you try and brawl all the time in it against tanks that can reliably pen, specifically tier 10 tanks or big heavy tanks that are tough to pen, you'll struggle because it can't pen very easily, good armor profiles, and it can be very easily penned once you reach a certain level of tank and a certain level of gun. Anything with those big nasty 300mm plus penetration numbers on the premium ammo will go straight through you. Any of the T10 TDs will get straight through you, but you're a medium tank. Like, you can't do everything. There's very few tanks in the game that are that strong, and you're just not one of them. That's all there is to it. We go for the track, we get it, but it doesn't do enough damage to break it. Go figure. Like, that's just one of those things. You can't win them all, but we do manage to get around behind this tortoise enough that we cause a little... Look how big it is. Look how massive this tank is. The tortoise is not a little tank. And this thing absolutely is huge. And it's still, like, it's absolutely massive. It's huge. It's hard to believe how big the E50 is. It's not easy to hide, and it's one of the reasons why the camo rating is so pants. Anyway, I digress. That's the E50. I'm glad that I got a chance to look back at it again. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Make sure that you stick around, watch the streams. I'm streaming on a Tuesday, 5:30 West Coast time, 8:30 East Coast time on NA, and also on a Sunday on NA, and also on a Thursday on NA. So Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, every week. 3 streams a week, regular as clockwork. I'm now streaming at 1020p, 60 frames per second. So that, oh, look at that gun. Look at that poor old Type 61 with a weak spot on top of a weak spot. And just like that, sniping, pushing, brawling, picking your spots, kind of knowing when to move. You know, another 4,000 plus game. And it did that really well for me. It did lots of 4,000 plus games. I was really, really impressed with the tank. Don't expect it to just dominate, but if you're looking for a fun tank that can do a lot of things really well, E50 might be for you. Until next time, look after yourself, stay safe on the battlefield, be nice to each other, and bye for now.